State, an area organized into a political unit and ruled by an established government that has complete control over their internal and foreign affairs. An example of this would be with the US of A. We got city-state. It's like a state, but a city-state is a sovereign state that comprises of only the town and its surrounding countryside, like the Vatican City. Macias loves that place. And then we also got a nation-state. It's a state whose territory corresponds to that occupied by a particular ethnicity. An example of this would be Egypt or Denmark. The most important global organization in the world is the United Nations. It was created at the end of the World War II by the Allies, and it consists of a group of delegates from the states working together to maintain peace and other humanitarian needs.
Key issue 1 also talks about the difficulties of identifying nations. An example of this would be North Korea and South Korea, who were divided into two different occupation zones after World War II. And despite being two sovereign governments, they both have tried to reunite since 2000, but today still remain two separate nations. Another example of this would be China and Taiwan. After a civil war between the communists and nationalists, the defeated nationalists fled to Taiwan. Taiwan is seen as an independent state by most of the world, except for China, who still thinks Taiwan is a part of China, even though Taiwan announced itself as an independent state in 1999.
We've already discussed nation-states in Key Issue 1, but we didn't mention multi-ethnic states, which consist of more than one ethnicity, or multinational states, which have more than one ethnicity with traditions of self-determination. For example, Russia, which also happens to be the largest multinational state. Another key topic is colonialism, which is an effort by one country to establish settlements in a territory and impose its own political, economic, and cultural principles. For example, the United States, which also began as a British colony. There are two main types of boundaries. Physical boundaries coincide with significant features of a natural landscape. Deserts, mountains, and water are all examples of physical boundaries. Deserts are difficult to cross and sparsely inhabited. Mountains are also difficult to cross, but not impossible, as can be seen in Argentina and Chile. Water, especially oceans, can often be the most effective boundary because it also makes a country easier to defend. Cultural boundaries follow the distribution of cultural characteristics, such as language or religion. There are also many shapes that states come in. A compact state is a state in which the distance from the center to any boundary doesn't vary significantly, essentially a circular state. They often have good internal communication, but are still prone to civil wars. An elongated state is long and narrow and often has very poor internal communication, for example, Chile. A corrupted state is a would-be compact state with a large extension, such as the Democratic Republic of Congo. A perforated state is a state that completely surrounds or is completely surrounded by another. This leads to obvious issues regarding dependence on one another, as can be seen in Lesotho. A fragmented state is a state broken up into several discontinuous pieces, separated either by water, as can be seen in Hawaii, or by another state, as can be seen in Alaska. These are often difficult to keep together and maintain communication with. A landlocked state is a state surrounded by land on all sides, which can impact the state's ability to trade with other countries. There are three main types of government: democracies, in which leaders are elected by the citizens; autocracies, in which the country is run with the interest of its leaders in mind; and onocracies, which combine elements of democracy and autocracy. There are two main ways of organizing power in states. Unitary states leave power in the hands of the officials. Rwanda and Kenya are both examples of unitary states. In federal states, power goes to units of local government, like in the U.S. The last important topic of the key issue is gerrymandering, which is the process of redrawing legislative boundaries for the purposes of benefiting parties in power. This can often lead to inaccurate counts and voting.
Key issue 4 talks about the Cold War, which was an arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union from 1947 to 1991. The Cold War is responsible for the creation of two prominent military alliances known as NATO and the Warsaw Pact. NATO containing Western countries, and the Warsaw Pact containing all the Eastern European countries like Poland and Romania. NATO has still prominent today, and the Warsaw Pact dissolved in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Cold War also led to the creation of two prominent economic alliances, the European Union, which was set to heal the scars of World War II between all the Western European countries like France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, and the Netherlands, and Comecon, which was a Soviet-oriented economic alliance which sought to improve trade and sharing of resources between all the Warsaw Pact members and other countries like Cuba, Mongolia, China, and Vietnam. And other world alliances have been created since, like the African Union, the Commonwealth, the OSCE, and the OAS. Key Issue 4 also talks about terrorism, which is a systematic use of violence by a group in order to intimidate a population or coerce a government into its demands. There has been countless terrorist attacks against Americans, but some of the notable ones are on April 19th, 1995, when a car bomb exploded and killed 168 people in Oklahoma City. In October of 2000, when the American military ship, the USS Cole, was bombed and it killed 17 people. But the most famous of all is the September 11, 2001 attacks, where 4 passenger jets were hijacked and flown into targets, killing over 3,000 people. There's also been a long history of states in the Middle East supporting terrorists. A few notables are Afghanistan, who provided a sanctuary for terrorists, Iran, who funded, supplied, and supported several attacks against the U.S., and Libya, who helped mastermind several attacks